The pediatrician's voice was steady, professional, but Emilia Davidson could hear the underlying tension as she spoke into the phone. "Mrs. Davidson, I need to inform you that based on the blood work results from your daughter's visit yesterday, I'm required by law to contact Child Protective Services. Someone gave your 3-month-old daughter alcohol." Amelia's world stopped. The morning sunlight streaming through her kitchen window in suburban Phoenix suddenly felt harsh and unforgiving. Baby Sophia was sleeping peacefully in her bouncer, unaware that her tiny life had just become the center of a storm that would tear their family apart. What had started as a simple family gathering 2 days ago had somehow led to this moment, a moment that would expose secrets, destroy relationships, and force Emilia to fight harder than she'd ever imagined possible to protect her child.
Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. 23-year-old Emilia Davidson had always been the responsible one. While her friends were out partying during college, she was studying for her nursing degree at Arizona State University. While they were traveling Europe after graduation, she was working double shifts at Phoenix General Hospital, saving money and building her career. At 22, when she married her college sweetheart, Marcus Davidson, a software engineer 3 years her senior, everyone said they were too young. But Emilia had always known what she wanted: a stable life, a loving family, and the security she'd never had growing up. Her childhood in Tucson had been anything but stable. Her mother, Linda Chen Martinez, had been a single parent struggling with addiction issues, moving them from apartment to apartment, boyfriend to boyfriend. Emilia learned early to take care of herself, to be the adult in the room when her mother couldn't be. It was why she'd thrown herself so completely into her studies, why she'd chosen nursing. She wanted to heal, to help, to create the kind of stable environment she'd always craved. When Sophia was born 3 months ago, Emilia felt like her life had finally clicked into place. The tiny apartment she and Marcus shared in Phoenix's Ahwatukee neighborhood wasn't much, but it was theirs. Marcus worked remotely for a tech startup, which meant he could help with the baby during the day. Emilia had taken a 6-month maternity leave from the hospital, and for the first time in her life, she felt genuinely content. Their little routine was simple but perfect. Marcus would wake up early to handle Sophia's first feeding while Emilia caught an extra hour of sleep. Then they'd have coffee together while the baby napped, talking quietly about their plans, maybe buying a house next year, perhaps starting a college fund for Sophia. In the afternoons, Emilia would take long walks with a stroller through their neighborhood, marveling at how different her life was from her mother's chaotic existence. The only complication in their peaceful life was Marcus's family. The Davidsons were everything Emilia's family wasn't: established, traditional, and tightly knit. Marcus's parents, Robert and Patricia Davidson, owned a successful accounting firm in Scottsdale and lived in a sprawling ranch house in the desert highlands. They'd been polite but distant when Marcus first introduced Emilia, clearly skeptical of their son's choice in a girlfriend who came from the wrong side of town and whose mother had been in and out of rehab. But it was Marcus's younger sister, Vanessa Davidson Torres, who posed the biggest challenge. At 26, Vanessa was everything Emilia wasn't: effortlessly confident, financially comfortable thanks to her job as a marketing coordinator for a luxury resort, and blessed with the kind of natural charisma that made her the center of attention at every family gathering. From the beginning, Vanessa had made it clear that she didn't think Emilia was good enough for her baby brother. It wasn't overt. Vanessa was too socially savvy for that. Instead, it came in the form of backhanded compliments, subtle exclusions, and a general attitude that Emilia was some kind of gold digger who had trapped Marcus with a pregnancy. The truth was more complicated. Emilia and Marcus had been trying to get pregnant for over a year. They'd even started looking into fertility testing when Emilia finally conceived. But Vanessa had somehow twisted the timeline in her mind, convinced that Emilia had deliberately gotten pregnant to secure her place in the Davidson family.
Despite the tension, Emilia tried to maintain a relationship with Marcus's family for his sake. Marcus adored his parents and sister, and the last thing Emilia wanted was to create a rift. She endured the monthly family dinners at the Davidson house, where Vanessa would monopolize conversations with stories about her glamorous life, while making pointed comments about how exhausting it must be to have a baby so young. The dynamics had only gotten worse since Sophia's birth. Vanessa, who'd been trying unsuccessfully to get pregnant for 2 years, seemed to take Emilia's easy conception as a personal affront. She'd make comments about how some people got pregnant without even trying, while others who were more financially stable and better prepared couldn't conceive. Rico, Vanessa's husband, was an entirely different kind of problem. Where Vanessa's hostility was subtle and calculated, Rico's behavior was unpredictable and concerning. He drank too much, told inappropriate jokes, and had a way of pushing boundaries that made Emilia deeply uncomfortable. At family gatherings, he'd make comments about Emilia's postpartum body that crossed the line from teasing into harassment. When she'd mentioned it to Marcus, he'd brushed it off as just Rico being Rico. But Emilia couldn't shake the feeling that there was something darker beneath Rico's jovial exterior. 3 weeks ago, things had come to a head at Marcus's parents' house during their monthly family dinner. Rico had been drinking heavily, more than usual, and had cornered Emilia in the kitchen while she was preparing Sophia's bottle. He'd made a comment about how lucky Marcus was to have a wife with such a hot body even after having a kid, and had actually reached out to touch her waist. Emilia had pushed his hand away firmly and told him to back off. Rico had laughed it off, claiming he was just being friendly, but the incident had left Emilia shaken. When she told Marcus about it later that night, he'd finally agreed that Rico's behavior was unacceptable and promised to talk to Vanessa. The conversation hadn't gone well. Vanessa had accused Emilia of overreacting and trying to cause drama in the family. She had claimed that Rico was just a touchy-feely person and that Emilia was taking things the wrong way. The argument had escalated until Vanessa finally accused Emilia of being paranoid and trying to isolate Marcus from his family. For 2 weeks after that, there had been radio silence from the Davidson family. Marcus's parents had called a few times to check on the baby, but the monthly dinner invitations had stopped. Emilia had actually started to relax, thinking that maybe some space would be good for everyone. Then, last Sunday, Vanessa had called with what seemed like an olive branch. She wanted to have Emilia and Marcus over for dinner at her house in Tempe. Just the 4 of them, she said, so they could clear the air and start fresh. She'd been unusually warm and apologetic, claiming that she'd been under a lot of stress because of her fertility treatments and had taken it out on Emilia unfairly. Marcus had been thrilled at the prospect of reconciling with his sister. "See," he said to Emilia, "I knew she'd come around. She's not a bad person, Em. She's just complicated." Emilia had her reservations, but she'd agreed to go. She wanted peace in the family, and if Vanessa was genuinely trying to make amends, she was willing to give her another chance. The dinner was set for this past Saturday evening. Vanessa had insisted they bring the baby. "I hardly ever get to see my niece," she had said. Emilia had packed the diaper bag carefully, including bottles, formula, and everything Sophia might need for an evening out. As they drove to Vanessa and Rico's house that Saturday evening, Emilia had felt cautiously optimistic. Maybe this was the fresh start their family needed. Maybe Vanessa was finally ready to accept her as part of the Davidson family. She had no way of knowing that the evening would set in motion a chain of events that would threaten everything she'd worked so hard to build: her marriage, her family, and most importantly, her ability to protect her innocent daughter from the very people who should have been keeping her safe. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. Saturday evening arrived with a kind of perfect Arizona weather that made Emilia remember why she loved living in Phoenix. The sun was setting behind the Estrella Mountains, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples as she and Marcus drove through the winding streets of Tempe toward Vanessa and Rico's house. Vanessa and Rico lived in a trendy neighborhood near Arizona State University, in a modern townhouse that showcased Vanessa's expensive taste and Rico's bartending skills. The house was always immaculate, filled with sleek furniture and an impressive collection of premium liquors that Rico had accumulated over his years working at high-end establishments. When they arrived, Vanessa greeted them at the door with what seemed like genuine enthusiasm. She was dressed casually, but elegantly, in a flowing maxi dress, her long, dark hair perfectly styled despite claiming she'd been cooking all day. Marcus, and like beautiful niece, she exclaimed, reaching immediately for Sophia, who was sleeping peacefully in her car seat. She just fell asleep in the car, Emilia said, instinctively protective. Maybe we should let her rest for a bit. Of course, Vanessa said, though Emilia caught a brief flash of disappointment in her sister-in-law's eyes. Rico's just finishing up the steaks on the grill. We thought we'd eat on the patio. It's such a gorgeous evening. The backyard was transformed with string lights and citronella candles, creating an intimate atmosphere that felt almost romantic. Rico emerged from the kitchen carrying a platter of perfectly grilled steaks, and for once, he seemed genuinely happy to see them, rather than looking for an opportunity to make Emilia uncomfortable. "Marcus, my man!" Rico called out, setting down the platter and embracing his brother-in-law warmly. He turned to Emilia with a smile that seemed genuinely apologetic. "And Emilia, I'm really glad you guys came tonight. I know things have been tense lately." Emilia was cautiously surprised by Rico's demeanor. He seemed sober, focused, and genuinely interested in making the evening pleasant. Maybe Vanessa had actually talked to him about his inappropriate behavior. The first hour of the evening went better than Emilia had dared to hope. The food was excellent. Vanessa had clearly put effort into the meal, making all of Marcus's favorite dishes. The conversation flowed naturally, covering safe topics like Marcus's work projects, the baby's sleeping patterns, and their plans for the upcoming holidays. Vanessa seemed particularly interested in hearing about Emilia's plans to return to work at the hospital. "I think it's so admirable that you're going back so soon. Not every new mom has the strength to handle such a demanding job while caring for an infant." She was initially intimidated by the setup. It looked more like a high-end cocktail lounge than a home kitchen. As Emilia prepared the bottle, testing the temperature on her wrist, Vanessa swayed gently with Sophia. "She's so perfect," she murmured. "So healthy and beautiful. You're so lucky, Em." There was something raw in Vanessa's voice that made Emilia look up from the bottle. For just a moment, her sister-in-law's carefully composed facade had slipped, revealing a depth of longing that was almost painful to witness. "Vanessa," Emilia said gently, "I know the fertility treatments have been hard. If you ever want to talk—" No, Vanessa said quickly, her bright smile snapping back into place. "Tonight's not about that. Tonight's about family." Rico appeared in the doorway, carrying their empty dinner plates. "How are my girls doing in here?" he asked cheerfully. "Need any help with the little princess?" "Actually, could you grab me a clean burp cloth from the diaper bag?" Emilia asked. "It's in the living room." "Sure thing," Rico said, disappearing back through the house. Vanessa continued to sway with Sophia, who was starting to make small, hungry sounds. "She's going to be so smart," Vanessa said. "I can already tell. Look at those alert little eyes." "The bottle should be ready," Emilia said, approaching with the formula, but Vanessa seemed reluctant to hand over the baby. "Could I feed her?" Vanessa asked. "I never get to do any of the fun aunt stuff." Emilia felt that same inexplicable hesitation again, but she couldn't think of a reasonable objection. Vanessa had fed babies before. She'd helped care for their cousins' children at family gatherings, and this was exactly the kind of olive branch Emilia had been hoping for. "Of course," she said, handing over the bottle. "Just make sure to support her head." I know, Vanessa said with a laugh. "I may not have my own babies yet, but I'm not completely hopeless." Rico returned with the burp cloth just as Vanessa was settling into one of the kitchen bar stools with Sophia. "Look at that," he said warmly. "Natural-born mother right there."
Marcus appeared in the doorway, drawn by the sound of voices. "Everything okay in here?" "Perfect," Vanessa said, focused intently on feeding Sophia. "She's such a good eater. No fussing at all." The men started discussing plans for watching the football game later, and Emilia found herself relaxing for the first time all evening. Maybe this reconciliation was genuine. Maybe Vanessa was finally ready to put aside her resentments and build a real relationship. That's when Rico made the suggestion that would change everything. "Hey, you know what?" he said suddenly, his tone casual, but with an undertone Emilia couldn't identify. "Since we're all family here and we're having such a nice time, why don't I make us some of my famous cocktails? I've been working on a new recipe, something with elderflower and gin." "That sounds great," Marcus said immediately. "Em, you up for a drink? You've been so stressed lately with the baby and everything." Emilia was about to decline. She was still breastfeeding occasionally and preferred to avoid alcohol, when Rico continued. "And you know what would be funny?" Rico said with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "What if we let the baby have just a tiny taste? Like just a drop on her lips. My grandmother used to do that with us kids, said it would help us sleep better." The kitchen went silent except for the sound of Sophia sucking on her bottle. "What?" Emilia said, sure she had misheard. "Just as a joke," Rico continued, his voice taking on that overly casual tone people use when they're testing boundaries. "It's harmless. People used to give babies whiskey when they were teething. This would be way less than that." Emilia felt her blood run cold. She looked at Vanessa, expecting her sister-in-law to immediately shut down her husband's absurd suggestion. But Vanessa was looking down at Sophia with an expression Emilia couldn't read. "Vanessa," Emilia said, her voice rising with sudden fear, "give me my daughter, now."
The silence in Rico's kitchen stretched like a taut wire about to snap. Emilia's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears as she stared at Vanessa, who was still holding Sophia and looking between her husband and Emilia with an expression of terrible indecision. "Vanessa?" Emilia repeated, her voice deadly calm, despite the panic rising in her chest. "Hand me my daughter. Right now." Marcus stepped forward, finally seeming to grasp the seriousness of the situation. "Van, come on. Just give Em the baby. Rico's had too much to drink. He doesn't know what he's saying." "I haven't had anything to drink tonight," Rico protested, and Emilia realized with horror that he was right. His suggestion hadn't come from alcohol-induced poor judgment. It had been calculated, deliberate. Vanessa's grip on Sophia tightened almost imperceptibly. "It really would just be a tiny drop," she said quietly, and Emilia felt the world tilt sideways. "Rico's right. People used to do it all the time. My own grandmother told me she gave my dad whiskey when he was teething." "That was 70 years ago," Emilia said, forcing herself to stay calm even as every instinct screamed at her to grab her baby and run. "We know better now. Alcohol can cause brain damage in infants. It can kill them." "You're being dramatic," Rico said, moving closer to his wife. "We're talking about less than what would be in vanilla extract." "Vanilla extract isn't served neat in a shot glass," Emilia snapped. She turned to Marcus, desperate for support. "Marcus, tell them this is insane." Marcus looked torn between loyalty to his family and protection of his own. "Look, everyone just calm down. Van, give Em the baby, and Rico, drop this whole thing. It was a bad joke." But Rico wasn't dropping it. If anything, he seemed energized by the conflict, his eyes bright with something that looked almost like excitement. "You know what I think this is really about?" he said, his voice taking on that condescending tone that made Emilia's skin crawl. "I think our precious Emilia here thinks she's better than us, too good for Davidson family traditions." "This isn't a tradition. This is child endangerment." "See?" Rico said to Vanessa. "She thinks we're all just backwoods idiots who don't know how to care for children. Meanwhile, where did she grow up again? Wasn't her mother the one with the drug problems?" The cheap shot hit its mark. Emilia felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she refused to be baited. "My mother's struggles have nothing to do with keeping my baby safe from your stupidity." "Rico, that's enough,"
Marcus said sharply, but Rico was just getting started. Is it enough? Because I'm getting real tired of walking on eggshells around Miss Perfect here. She comes into this family acting like she's doing us all a favor, judging everything we do, making Marcus choose between his wife and his blood relatives. That's not what I'm doing, Emilia said, but her voice wavered. Some of Rico's words hit uncomfortably close to insecurities she'd been carrying since she first met the Davidson family. Vanessa spoke up suddenly. Maybe Rico has a point. All three of them turned to stare at her. She was looking down at Sophia, who had finished her bottle and was making small, contented sounds. Van. But she cut him off. No, think about it, she said, her voice gaining strength. Ever since she showed up, it's been nothing but drama. First, she accidentally got pregnant right after we started trying. Then she decides Rico is some kind of predator just because he's friendly. Now she's acting like we're trying to poison her baby just because we suggested a harmless family tradition. Getting pregnant wasn't an accident. We were trying for over a year.
Were you? Vanessa asked, and there was something ugly in her smile. Or did you just get lucky and decide to rewrite history to make yourself look better? Emilia felt like she'd been slapped. How can you even ask that? Because I've been trying for 2 years, Vanessa said, her voice rising. 2 years of shots and pills and procedures and disappointment. And then you waltz in and get pregnant on what, your 2nd month trying? And now you parade around like you're mother of the year while I can't even get my body to do what it's supposed to do. The raw pain in Vanessa's voice was almost unbearable, but it was mixed with a venom that made Emilia's blood run cold. This wasn't just about fertility struggles. This was about something much deeper and more dangerous. Vanessa, Emilia said gently, your fertility issues aren't my fault, and they don't give you the right to put my daughter at risk. Risk, Vanessa laughed bitterly. You want to talk about risk? You work in an hospital emergency room. You see drunk drivers and overdoses and actual child abuse every day, and you're worried about 1 drop of alcohol as a family bonding moment? Those things you mentioned are exactly why I know how dangerous this is, Emilia said. I've seen what alcohol poisoning does to infants. I've seen babies die from things their parents thought were harmless. Rico moved to stand behind Vanessa's chair, his hands resting on her shoulders. See, that's the problem right there. She's not thinking about family. She's thinking about lawsuits and liability and all that clinical bullshit. I'm thinking about my daughter's life, Emilia said. Are you? Or are you thinking about how you can use this to prove you're a better mother than me, how you can turn Marcus against his own family? The accusation was so unfair, so twisted, that Emilia was momentarily speechless. In that moment of silence, Rico leaned down and whispered something in Vanessa's ear that Emilia couldn't hear, but made her sister-in-law's eyes harden with resolve. You know what? Vanessa said, standing up with Sophia still in her arms. I think we should do it. Just a tiny drop, just to prove that you're not the only one who knows how to take care of a baby. Emilia's training as a nurse kicked in, overriding her panic with cold, clear thinking. She had to get Sophia away from these people, but she couldn't risk a physical altercation while her baby was in Vanessa's arms. She needed to de-escalate without appearing weak. Vanessa, please, she said, her voice steady despite the terror clawing at her chest. I know you love Sophia. I know you would never intentionally hurt her. But this isn't about proving anything. It's about keeping her safe. Safe from what? Rico interjected. From her own family? From people who love her? From alcohol, Emilia said firmly. Babies can't metabolize alcohol like adults. Their livers aren't developed enough. Even a small amount can cause hypoglycemia, seizures, coma. It can kill her. You're being ridiculous, Vanessa said, but Emilia could see uncertainty creeping into her expression. Marcus finally found his voice. Van, Em's right. This has gone too far. Give her the baby. But Rico wasn't done. You know what? Fine. Emilia thinks we're all incompetent. She doesn't trust us with her precious baby. Message received loud and clear. He walked over to his impressive liquor collection and pulled down a bottle of top-shelf gin. But before we end this little family gathering, I want everyone to understand what we're talking about here.
He opened the bottle and tilted it over a teaspoon, letting exactly 3 drops fall into the spoon. This much. 3 drops. Less than what's in a teaspoon of cough medicine. Rico, don't, Marcus warned. I'm not doing anything, Rico said innocently. I'm just demonstrating how ridiculous this whole argument is. But Emilia saw the look that passed between Rico and Vanessa, and she knew with cold certainty that this demonstration was about to become something much worse. Marcus, Emilia said quietly, never taking her eyes off Vanessa and the baby, get your keys, we're leaving now. Nobody's leaving till we settle this, Rico said, and there was something in his tone that made Emilia's blood freeze. The evening that had started with hope for reconciliation had devolved into something that felt increasingly dangerous, and Sophia, innocent and helpless, was caught in the middle of adult conflicts she couldn't understand or escape.
The tension in the kitchen had reached a breaking point. Rico stood with a spoon of gin in one hand, the bottle in the other, while Vanessa clutched Sophia with an expression that had shifted from desperate longing to something that looked almost predatory. Emilia realized that reasoning with them was no longer an option. She needed to act. "Marcus," she said quietly, her nursing training helping her maintain an appearance of calm while her mind raced through possible scenarios. "Your sister needs help. Professional help. This isn't about family traditions or proving points anymore." "Don't you dare," Vanessa hissed. "Don't you dare try to make me sound crazy just because I won't let you control everything." But Marcus was finally seeing the situation clearly. His sister was holding his infant daughter while his brother-in-law stood ready with alcohol, and his wife, a trained medical professional, was telling him this was dangerous. The family loyalty that had blinded him for months suddenly seemed far less important than protecting his child. "Van, give me Sophia," Marcus said, his voice carrying an authority Emilia had never heard from him before. "This stops now." "No," Vanessa said simply, taking a step backward toward the sliding glass door that led to the patio. "I'm not done holding my niece." Rico moved to block the kitchen's main exit, effectively trapping Emilia and Marcus in the room. "Like I said, nobody's leaving until we settle this family business." Emilia's mind shifted into the same crisis mode she used in the emergency room when a trauma patient's condition suddenly deteriorated. She needed to assess her resources, identify the primary threat, and execute a plan that would minimize harm to everyone involved, but especially to Sophia. Resource assessment. She and Marcus were outnumbered but not outmatched. Rico was physically stronger, but he was also slightly drunk despite his denials. She could smell whiskey on his breath now that she was paying attention. Vanessa was emotionally unstable, but still rational enough to be reasoned with, hopefully. The baby was the most vulnerable element and had to be protected at all costs. Primary threat. Rico's unpredictability and apparent willingness to escalate the situation. Vanessa was desperate, but not inherently violent. Rico, however, was clearly enjoying the power dynamic and showed signs of someone who might do something irreversible just to prove a point. Plan. Get Sophia away from them both, document what was happening, and leave immediately. Call for help once they were safe. "Okay," Emilia said, forcing her voice to sound defeated. "You want to prove a point? Fine. But let me hold Sophia while you make your demonstration. I'm her mother. If something goes wrong, I need to be the one holding her." It was a calculated risk. By appearing to give in, she might be able to get Sophia back into her arms. Once she had her daughter, she could better control the situation. Rico looked suspicious. "Nice try, but Vanessa's perfectly capable of holding a baby." "I'm sure she is," Emilia said. "But if you're really going to do this, I want to be the one responsible, as her mother." Vanessa looked confused by this apparent capitulation, but Rico was nodding approvingly. "See?
That wasn't so hard, admitting that maybe you don't know everything. Can I please have my daughter? Emilia asked Vanessa directly. For a moment, Vanessa hesitated. Then she looked down at Sophia, and something in her expression softened. She really is perfect, isn't she? So beautiful and healthy. Yes, she is, Emilia agreed, and I want to keep her that way. Vanessa looked up sharply. Meaning what? That I would hurt her? Meaning that I want to be holding her if anything happens. Rico was growing impatient. Just give her the kid, Van. Let's get this over with so we can all move on. Vanessa took a step toward Emilia, and for a moment, Emilia thought her strategy was working. But then Rico said something that changed everything. Actually, you know what? This whole thing has given me an idea for an even better family bonding experience. He walked over to his liquor cabinet and pulled out a bottle of expensive tequila. Instead of just giving the baby a taste, why don't we all do shots together, the whole family, even Emilia, to toast new beginnings and putting all this drama behind us? Emilia's blood ran cold. She understood immediately what Rico was really proposing. If he could get her to drink alcohol while she was breastfeeding, he would have ammunition to use against her later. He could claim she was a hypocrite, that she was willing to expose Sophia to alcohol through breast milk while condemning him for a direct approach.
I'm not drinking, Emilia said firmly. I'm still breastfeeding. Occasionally, Rico said with a nasty smile. That's what you said earlier, right? Occasionally? So one drink won't hurt anything. One drink is still too much when you're nursing an infant, Emilia replied. But it's not too much for you to have a glass of wine with dinner last week at your parents' house, Vanessa said suddenly. Emilia stared at her sister-in-law in shock. What are you talking about? Marcus mentioned it. How you had wine with dinner when you visited your mom last weekend. So apparently alcohol is fine when it's your choice, but not when it's our family tradition. Emilia felt the trap closing around her. Marcus looked confused and guilty, clearly not remembering mentioning any such thing because it had never happened. She hadn't had any alcohol since before Sophia was born. I never had wine at my mother's house, Emilia said slowly. Marcus, you know that's not true. Marcus looked between his wife and his sister, confusion evident on his face. I don't remember saying that. You were tired, Vanessa said smoothly. It was when you called to check on the game scores. You mentioned that Emilia was relaxing with a glass of wine while your mother-in-law watched the baby. It was a complete fabrication, but Emilia realized with growing horror that Vanessa was creating a narrative that would justify whatever they were planning to do. If they went through with giving Sophia alcohol, Vanessa could later claim that Emilia was a hypocrite who regularly drank while breastfeeding. That never happened, Emilia said firmly. And Marcus, you know that's not true because you were with me at my mother's house that entire evening. Marcus nodded slowly. Yeah, Van, I was there. Em didn't have any wine. For the first time that evening, Vanessa looked genuinely flustered. Her carefully constructed lie had fallen apart immediately, and she seemed to realize that her desperation was showing. Rico, however, was undeterred. Okay, fine, no shots for the new mom, but that doesn't change our original plan. He held up the spoon with the gin again, and Emilia realized that all her attempts at de-escalation had failed. They were really going to try to force Alka-Seltz on her 3-month-old daughter. If you do that, Emilia said, her voice deadly calm, I will call 911 the moment we leave here. I will have Sophia taken to the emergency room for blood work, and when that blood work shows alcohol in her system, I will press charges for child endangerment. You wouldn't dare, Rico said, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. Try me, Emilia replied. I've seen what alcohol poisoning does to infants. I've held babies while they seized and stopped breathing. I will not let that happen to my daughter, and I will destroy anyone who tries to make it happen. The kitchen fell silent except for Sophia's small, contented sounds. Finally, Vanessa spoke. Maybe we should just forget the whole thing.
Rico whirled on his wife. "Are you kidding me? After all this drama, you're going to cave to her threats? She's a nurse, Rico. She knows about this stuff. And if something really did happen to Sophia, nothing would happen. It's 3 drops of gin. But what if she's right? What if it really is dangerous?" Emilia saw her opportunity. "Vanessa, you love Sophia. I know you do, and I know you would never forgive yourself if something happened to her because of a decision you made tonight." For a long moment, Vanessa stared down at the baby in her arms. Then slowly, she walked over to Emilia and placed Sophia in her mother's arms. The relief Emilia felt at having her daughter back was overwhelming, but she knew the danger wasn't over. Rico was clearly furious at his wife's change of heart, and there was something in his expression that suggested he wasn't ready to give up on his twisted game. "We're leaving," Emilia announced, holding Sophia close to her chest. "Like hell you are," Rico said, moving to block their path again. But Marcus had finally reached his limit. "Get out of the way, Rico. We're taking our daughter and going home. This is my house, and that's my niece, and if you try to stop us from leaving, I'll call the police myself." The standoff stretched for several tense seconds. Then Rico stepped aside with an ugly smile. "Fine, go, but don't come crying to us when your perfect little family falls apart, and don't expect any more invitations to family gatherings." Emilia didn't care about future invitations. All she cared about was getting Sophia away from these people and never looking back. But as they gathered their things and headed for the door, she couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Rico's parting words had sounded less like an angry goodbye, more like a threat.
The drive home from Vanessa and Rico's house was conducted in tense silence. Emilia sat in the back seat next to Sophia's car seat, her hand resting protectively on her daughter's chest, feeling the steady rise and fall of her breathing. Marcus gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles were white, his jaw clenched as he navigated the empty Saturday night streets of Phoenix. It wasn't until they were safely inside their own apartment, with all the locks secured and Sophia settled in her crib, that either of them spoke. "I can't believe that just happened," Marcus said, slumping onto their small couch. "I can't believe my own sister would what?" Emilia asked, settling beside him. "Threaten to give alcohol to our baby? Lie about me drinking while breastfeeding? Stand by while her husband tried to trap us in their house?" Marcus flinched at each accusation. "When you put it like that, that's exactly what happened, Marcus. There's no other way to put it." For a long moment, they sat in silence. Then Marcus spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "What do we do now?" Emilia had been asking herself the same question. Her nursing instincts told her to document everything, to take Sophia to the emergency room for a precautionary examination, to file a police report. But her heart ached for Marcus, who was clearly devastated by his family's behavior. "I think we need to cut contact with them," she said gently, "at least until Rico gets help for whatever is wrong with him. He's always been a little—" Marcus struggled for the right word. "Inappropriate. But tonight was different. It was like he wanted to hurt Sophia just to prove he could. And Vanessa enabled him. She made up that story about me drinking. She was ready to go along with giving our daughter alcohol. Whatever she's going through with the fertility treatments, it's affecting her judgment." Marcus nodded reluctantly. "My parents need to know about this." "Do they? Or will they just make excuses for them like they always do?" It was a fair question. Robert and Patricia Davidson had a long history of minimizing Rico's behavior and excusing Vanessa's increasingly erratic actions as stress from trying to conceive. Marcus's phone buzzed with a text message. He glanced at it, and his face darkened. "What is it?" Emilia asked. "Vanessa." Marcus showed her the screen. "She wants to talk about what happened and clear up any misunderstandings." Emilia felt a chill run down her spine. "There weren't any misunderstandings. They threatened our daughter." "I know," Marcus said. "I'm not responding." But the texts kept coming, first from Vanessa, then from Rico, then from Vanessa again. The tone shifted from apologetic to defensive to accusatory within the span of an hour. "Look at this," Marcus said, his voice tight with anger as he read the latest message. "Rico is saying we overreacted and that they were just trying to include Sophia in a family moment." Screenshot everything, Emilia said immediately. Don't delete anything. We might need it. Need it for what? I don't know yet, but I have a feeling this isn't over. She was right. Sunday brought a phone call from Patricia Davidson, Marcus's mother, at 7 a.m. Marcus, honey. Patricia's voice was strained through the phone speaker. Vanessa called me last night. She's very upset about what happened. She says there was some kind of misunderstanding about a family tradition, and now you won't return her calls. Emilia watched Marcus struggle with how to respond to his mother. Patricia Davidson was a sweet woman, but she had a blind spot when it came to her daughter's increasingly troubling behavior. Mom, it wasn't a misunderstanding. Rico wanted to give 3-month-old Sophia gin, actual alcohol. When we said no, they wouldn't let us leave. There was a long pause. Oh, honey, are you sure that's what happened? Vanessa said it was just a joke that got taken too seriously. It wasn't a joke, Mom. They had the alcohol ready. Rico was holding a spoon with gin in it. Well, Patricia said, and Emilia could hear the discomfort in her voice. You know Rico sometimes says things without thinking, and Vanessa has been under so much stress with the fertility treatments. Mom, Marcus interrupted, they threatened to give my infant daughter alcohol. There's no amount of stress that makes that okay. After the call ended, Marcus looked emotionally drained. She wants us to come to dinner next Sunday, the whole family, to work things out. Absolutely not, Emilia said immediately. I'm not putting Sophia in that situation again. I told her we needed time to think about it. But as the week progressed, the pressure from the Davidson family intensified. Robert called Tuesday evening, taking a more direct approach than his wife. Son, you need to think about what you're doing here. Family is forever. Whatever happens Saturday night, it can be worked out if everyone acts like adults.
Dad, they wanted to give Sophia alcohol. As a joke. How is that acting like adults? I'm sure it wasn't as serious as you're making it sound. Rico may have poor judgment sometimes, but he loves that baby. They both do. Love doesn't mean you get to endanger a child. You're being dramatic, Marcus, and you're letting Emilia turn you against your own family. The accusation hit like a physical blow. Emilia, who was feeding Sophia in the kitchen while Marcus took the call, felt her heart sink. It was exactly what she'd feared. That somehow this would become her fault, that she would be painted as the outsider driving a wedge between Marcus and his family. Wednesday brought a surprise visit from Vanessa herself. Emilia was alone with Sophia when the doorbell rang at 10 a.m. She looked through the peephole and felt her stomach drop. Vanessa stood on the doorstep holding a large bouquet of flowers and what looked like a gift bag. She appeared to have been crying. Her makeup was smudged and her usually perfect hair was disheveled. Emilia didn't open the door. Em, I know you're home. Your car is in the parking lot. Please, I just want to talk. There's nothing to talk about, Emilia called through the door. Please, I know I messed up. I know Rico went too far. I need you to understand what I was thinking. Against her better judgment, Emilia found herself curious about what possible explanation Vanessa could offer, but she still didn't open the door. You can talk from out there. The fertility treatments, Emilia's voice was muffled but audible. They've been messing with my head, the hormones, the stress, the constant disappointment. When I'm holding Sophia, it's the only time I feel like I might actually be a good mother someday. Despite everything, Emilia felt a pang of sympathy. She knew how much Vanessa wanted children, and she could imagine how desperate the repeated failed treatments must make her feel. That doesn't excuse what happened Saturday, Emilia said. I know it doesn't. But Em, I would never actually hurt Sophia. When Rico suggested that thing with the alcohol, I should have shut it down immediately. I wasn't thinking clearly. And the lie you told about me drinking wine? There was a long pause. I don't know why I said that. I was panicking. I felt like you thought I was a terrible person, and I wanted to make it seem like you weren't perfect either. It was the closest thing to an honest explanation Emilia had heard from any of the Davidsons on Saturday night.
but it still didn't address the fundamental problem. What about Rico? Emilia asked. He's the one who came up with the idea. He's the one who wouldn't let us leave. He's getting help, she said quickly. I made him promise to see someone, a therapist. He knows he has a drinking problem, and he knows his judgment gets bad when he's been drinking. He said he hadn't been drinking Saturday night. Another long pause. He had been, earlier in the day, before you came over. He hides it well, but I can tell. This was new information, and it complicated Emilia's understanding of what had happened. If Rico had been drunk, it didn't excuse his behavior, but it might explain the escalation from inappropriate suggestion to genuine threat. Vanessa, Emilia said finally, I believe that you love Sophia, and I believe that you wouldn't intentionally hurt her. But I can't trust your judgment when it comes to Rico, and I can't put my daughter at risk because you're going through a difficult time. So that's it? You're cutting us out of Sophia's life forever? I don't know, Emilia admitted. Right now, I'm just trying to keep her safe. What if Rico gets sober? What if he goes to treatment and proves he's changed? Then we'll talk about it. But Vanessa, you need to understand something. My job as a mother is to protect my child, not to maintain family relationships, not to give people second chances, not to be understanding about addiction or fertility struggles or family dynamics. My only job is to keep Sophia safe. Even if it means breaking up Marcus's family? The question hit Emilia like a punch to the gut, because deep down, she was terrified that the situation was going to force Marcus to choose between his wife and daughter on one side and his parents and sister on the other. And she wasn't entirely sure which side he would ultimately choose. Thursday brought the news that changed everything. Marcus came home from work with a grim expression and an envelope in his hand. What's that? Emilia asked. Legal papers, Marcus said heavily. Rico's filed a complaint with Child Protective Services. He's claiming we're unfit parents who are alienating Sophia from her extended family for no reason. Emilia felt the blood drain from her face. What? There's more. He's saying that you have a history of mental health issues related to your mother's addiction problems and that you're projecting your childhood trauma onto normal family interactions. The calculated cruelty of it took Emilia's breath away. Rico wasn't just trying to get back at them for Saturday night, he was trying to destroy their family entirely.
The Child Protective Services caseworker arrived at their apartment on Friday afternoon, exactly 24 hours after Marcus had received the legal papers. Her name was Sandra Chen, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor that reminded Emilia uncomfortably of some of the social workers who had visited her own childhood home. Mrs. Davidson, Sandra said as she settled into their small living room with a thick folder and a tablet, I'm here to investigate allegations that have been made regarding the welfare of your 3-month-old daughter, Sophia. Emilia's hands trembled as she poured coffee for their unexpected guest. Marcus sat rigidly beside her on the couch, Sophia sleeping peacefully in her bouncer nearby, blissfully unaware that her entire future hung in the balance. We understand there's been a complaint, Emilia said, her nursing training helping her maintain composure despite the terror clawing at her chest. But I think there's been a serious misunderstanding about what actually happened. Sandra consulted her notes. According to the report filed by Ricardo Torres, you and your husband have been exhibiting paranoid behavior regarding normal family interactions. He states that you've accused family members of attempting to harm your daughter based on what he describes as innocent jokes and traditional family customs. That's not what happened, Marcus said firmly. Rico wanted to give our 3-month-old daughter alcohol. When we refused, they wouldn't let us leave their house. Sandra made a note. Can you walk me through exactly what occurred on Saturday evening? For the next hour, Emilia and Marcus recounted every detail of the dinner party. Sandra listened without interruption, occasionally asking for clarification or making notes. When they finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Mrs. Davidson, she said finally,
You work as a registered nurse at Phoenix General Hospital, correct? Yes, in the emergency department. So you would be familiar with the medical dangers of giving alcohol to an infant? Absolutely. Infants can't metabolize alcohol like adults. Even small amounts can cause hypoglycemia, respiratory depression, seizures, coma, or death. Sandra nodded. And Mr. Davidson, you witnessed your brother-in-law holding alcohol and suggesting it be given to your daughter. He had a spoon with gin in it. 3 drops, he said. When we refused, he got angry and blocked the exits. My sister backed him up. I see. She made more notes. Now, Mr. Torres also alleges that Mrs. Davidson has a history of mental health issues stemming from childhood trauma related to parental substance abuse. Can you address that? Emilia felt her cheeks burn with humiliation and rage. Rico was weaponizing her difficult childhood against her, using her mother's struggles as evidence that she was unfit to be a parent. My mother struggled with addiction when I was growing up. That's exactly why I'm so protective of Sophia. I know what alcohol abuse can do to families. I would never expose my daughter to that. The complaint suggests that you're projecting past trauma onto current situations, seeing threats where none exist. The threat was real, Marcus interjected. I was there. I saw it. My own family tried to give my baby alcohol and then tried to prevent us from leaving when we objected. Sandra continued her questioning for another 30 minutes, asking about their parenting practices, Sophia's health and development, their support systems, and their family dynamics. She examined their home, checking that it was clean and safe, and observed their interactions with Sophia. I'll need to speak with some references, Sandra said as she prepared to leave. Your pediatrician, your supervisor at the hospital, neighbors, family members. Family members? Emilia asked with dread. It's standard procedure. I'll be contacting Mr. Davidson's parents and sister as part of the investigation. After Sandra left, Emilia and Marcus sat in stunned silence. The clinical, bureaucratic nature of the investigation somehow made everything feel more real and more terrifying. They're going to talk to my parents, Marcus said hollowly. And Vanessa. Your parents will tell the truth, though she wasn't entirely convinced. Will they? Or will they protect Vanessa and Rico? It was a question that haunted them over the weekend. On Saturday, Patricia Davidson called, her voice tight with stress. Marcus, what is this about Child Protective Services calling us? They're asking questions about Saturday night about whether they think you and Emilia are fit parents. What did you tell them? I told them the truth, that you're wonderful parents and that Sophia is a happy, healthy baby. But Marcus, this is serious. If there's an official investigation, it could affect your father's business. Some of his clients are very conservative about these things. Emilia felt sick. Even now, facing a CPS investigation triggered by Rico's malicious complaint, the Davidson family was more concerned about protecting their reputation than supporting Marcus and Sophia. Mom, they threatened to give Sophia alcohol. Don't you understand how serious that is? I understand that there was some kind of misunderstanding that's gotten blown out of proportion. Can't you just apologize and move on? Apologize for what? For protecting our daughter? The conversation ended badly, with Patricia hanging up in frustration and Marcus staring at his phone in disbelief. Sunday brought a visit from Robert Davidson, who arrived at their apartment unannounced with the kind of grim determination he usually reserved for difficult clients. We need to talk, he announced, pushing past Emilia into their living room.
Dad, what are you doing here? Marcus asked. I'm here to fix this mess before it destroys our entire family, Robert said bluntly. Do you have any idea what kind of position you've put us all in? What position? Emilia asked, incredulous. We're the ones being investigated by Child Protective Services. Because you couldn't let a simple misunderstanding go, Robert replied coldly. Because you had to turn a family gathering into some kind of federal case. A family gathering where your son-in-law wanted to give our baby alcohol, Marcus said, his voice rising. A few drops of gin is not going to hurt a baby, Robert said dismissively. My generation survived just fine with a lot less coddling.
Emilia stared at Marcus's father in shock. Are you seriously defending what Rico did? I'm defending my family, which, in case you've forgotten, includes Rico. He's married to my daughter. He's part of this family, whether you like it or not. And what about Sophia? She's your granddaughter. Doesn't protecting her matter more than protecting Rico? Sophia was never in any real danger, Robert said dismissively. But this investigation could destroy Rico's career. Do you know what happens to bartenders who get accused of giving alcohol to babies? He could lose his job, his reputation, everything. The breathtaking selfishness of it left Emilia speechless. Rico had filed a malicious complaint with CPS to retaliate against them for protecting their daughter, and Robert was worried about Rico's career prospects. Dad, get out, Marcus said quietly. What? Get out of our apartment now. Marcus, be reasonable. You just told me that Rico's job is more important than Sophia's safety. You just blamed my wife for protecting our daughter from someone who wanted to give her alcohol. Get out. Robert's face flushed red with anger. Fine, but don't come crying to us when this investigation ruins your lives. And don't expect any support from the family when the social workers start digging into your backgrounds. After he left, Marcus slumped onto the couch with his head in his hands. I can't believe that just happened. Your family is protecting Rico, Emilia said, the full implications finally sinking in. They're telling CPS that we're the problem. Not all of them, Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. Monday brought devastating confirmation of Emilia's fears. Sandra Chen called to schedule a follow-up visit, and her tone was noticeably cooler than it had been on Friday. Mrs. Davidson, I've completed my initial interviews with family members. I need to discuss some concerning information that's come to light. What kind of information? Asked Emilia, though she already knew. I spoke with Mr. Davidson's parents and sister. Their account of Saturday evening differs significantly from yours. They describe you as having a history of overreacting to normal family interactions, and suggest that your childhood experiences may be affecting your judgment as a parent. Emilia's heart sank. And what about Rico? Did you speak with him? Mr. Torres was very cooperative. He expressed concern about your family's isolation from extended family members and suggested that you may be suffering from postpartum anxiety that's causing you to perceive threats where none exist. That's not true, Emilia said desperately. Marcus was there. He saw everything. Mr. Torres suggests that your husband is being influenced by your fears rather than making independent judgments about family safety. It was a masterful manipulation. Rico had turned her protective instincts into evidence of mental illness, her difficult childhood into proof of unfitness, and Marcus's support into evidence that she was controlling him. Mrs. Davidson, I need to ask you directly, have you sought any mental health treatment since Sophia's birth? No, because I don't need it. I'm not suffering from postpartum depression or anxiety. I was protecting my daughter from people who wanted to give her alcohol. I see. Well, I'm going to recommend that you undergo a psychological evaluation as part of this investigation. Additionally, we'll need to do a home visit with more thorough documentation of your parenting practices. After the call ended, Emilia sat in her kitchen, staring at the wall, feeling like her world was collapsing around her. Everything she had worked for, her education, her career, her family, was being threatened by people who should have been protecting her daughter. But the worst was yet to come. That afternoon, she received a call from her supervisor at Phoenix General Hospital. Emilia, I need to inform you that we've received some inquiries about your fitness to work with children. Given your current maternity leave status, it doesn't affect your immediate employment, but we may need to discuss this situation when you're ready to return to work. Inquiries from whom? Emilia asked, though she already knew. I can't share specifics, but someone has suggested that you may be experiencing mental health issues that could affect your judgment in clinical situations. Rico wasn't just trying to take Sophia away from her.
He was trying to destroy her entire life.
Tuesday morning brought an unexpected phone call that would change everything. Emilia was feeding Sophia when her phone rang, displaying a number she didn't recognize. Mrs. Davidson, this is Dr. Jennifer Martinez from Phoenix Children's Hospital. I understand you're currently involved in a Child Protective Services investigation? Emilia's blood ran cold. Had the investigation spread to other hospitals? Yes, but I'm not sure why you're calling. I'm calling because Ricardo Torres was brought to our emergency department last night. He was treated for acute alcohol poisoning. The words hit Emilia like a physical blow. What? During his treatment, Mr. Torres made some concerning statements to our staff about children and alcohol. Given the nature of the CPS case involving your family, I felt obligated to contact you directly. Emilia's mind raced. What kind of statements? He was heavily intoxicated and became agitated when our nurses tried to start an IV. He began ranting about how everyone overreacts to giving children alcohol and how he proved his point by filing complaints against paranoid parents. He specifically mentioned your name and your daughter. Are you saying he confessed to filing false reports? I'm saying we have documentation of a patient making statements that directly contradict his official complaint to CPS. Mrs. Davidson, I've been an emergency physician for 15 years. I've seen what alcohol poisoning can do to adults, let alone infants. What this man was suggesting would have been extremely dangerous. Hope flickered in Emilia's chest for the first time in days. Would you be willing to provide that documentation to the CPS investigator? I've already contacted Sandra Chen. She'll be receiving our incident report this afternoon. After hanging up, Emilia immediately called Marcus at work. You need to come home. Now. Something's happened with Rico. When Marcus arrived 30 minutes later, Emilia filled him in on Dr. Martinez's call. For the first time since this nightmare began, Marcus looked hopeful. So, Rico basically confessed that he was lying about us? It sounds like it, but there's something else we need to do. We need to get our own documentation together. We can't just wait for the system to work. We need to be proactive. Emilia nodded. She'd been thinking the same thing. I've been keeping notes on everything since Saturday night. Every phone call, every text message, every interaction with your family. Good. What else? We need character references. People who can testify to our parenting, our stability, our judgment. They spent the afternoon making calls. Dr. Patricia Walsh, Sophia's pediatrician, agreed to provide a statement about their excellent care of their daughter. Emilia's supervisor at Phoenix General, after learning more details about the situation, offered to write a letter supporting her professional judgment and emotional stability. Their neighbors, an elderly couple who often saw them walking with Sophia, were happy to attest to their loving interactions with their daughter. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Wednesday afternoon, Vanessa appeared at their door again, but this time she looked genuinely broken. Her usual perfect appearance was replaced by red-rimmed eyes, unwashed hair, and clothes that looked like she'd slept in them. I need to talk to you, please. Against Marcus's objections, Emilia let her in. Vanessa sat heavily on their couch, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Rico's in the hospital, she said without preamble. We know, Emilia replied carefully. Do you know why? Vanessa's voice was barely above a whisper. Emilia and Marcus exchanged glances. Alcohol poisoning, we heard? Vanessa laughed bitterly. That's the official story. The truth is, he tried to kill himself. The admission hung in the air like a bomb. Emilia felt her anger towards Vanessa soften slightly, replaced by professional concern. Vanessa, I'm sorry. Is he okay? Physically, yes. Mentally, Vanessa shook her head. He's been spiraling for months. The drinking, the inappropriate behavior, the anger issues. I kept making excuses, kept covering for him, kept hoping he'd get better on his own. What does this have to do with us? Marcus asked, though his tone was gentler than it had been in days. Everything, Vanessa said, finally looking up at them. The complaint he filed with CPS, it wasn't just about Saturday night. He's been planning something like this for weeks. He's obsessed with the idea that you two think you're better than us.
We never said that, Emilia protested. I know, but Rico, when he drinks, he gets paranoid. He convinced himself that you were trying to turn Marcus against his family, that you were using Sophia as a weapon to isolate us. So he decided to use CPS as a weapon against us, Marcus said. Yes, and I let him. God, Em, I let him because I was so angry about the fertility stuff, so jealous of how easy everything seemed for you. Vanessa's voice broke. I helped him destroy your family because I was bitter about not having my own. Emilia felt a complex mix of emotions: anger, sympathy, and something that might have been relief. Finally, someone from Marcus's family was telling the truth. What changed? She asked. Why are you telling us this now? Because when Rico was in the ER ranting about children and alcohol, one of the nurses asked him directly if he'd ever actually given alcohol to a child, and he said yes. Emilia's blood froze. What do you mean, yes? He said he'd given his nephew, my sister Maria's baby, rum in his bottle when he was babysitting last month. Just a few drops, he said, to help him sleep better. Oh my God, Marcus breathed. Maria doesn't know yet. I haven't told her. But Em, you were right. Rico is dangerous. Not just inappropriate or boundary crossing, actually dangerous. And I helped him try to take Sophia away from you because I was too messed up to see it. Vanessa reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. I brought copies of text messages between Rico and me from the past month, messages where he talks about teaching Emilia a lesson and showing her what happens when she disrespects family. I also brought recordings. Recordings? Emilia asked. I started recording our conversations after Saturday night because he was saying such crazy things. I thought maybe if I could play them back to him when he was sober, he'd realize how out of control he was getting. Vanessa pulled out her phone and played a recording. Rico's voice, slurred but clearly audible, filled their living room. That bitch thinks she knows everything because she's a nurse. I'm gonna show her what happens when you mess with the Torres family. CPS will take that baby away, and then she'll know what it feels like to lose something precious. The malice in Rico's voice was chilling, but there was more. I should have given the baby more than just a taste. Should have given her enough that they'd have to take her to the hospital. Then when they tested her blood, it would have looked like they were the ones who did it. Emilia felt sick. Rico hadn't just wanted to give Sophia a harmless taste of alcohol. He'd wanted to poison her daughter enough to frame them for child abuse. There are 6 hours of recordings like this, Vanessa said quietly. Rico planning different ways to hurt you, to take Sophia away, to destroy your marriage and your career. He's been obsessed with it. Marcus was staring at his sister in horror. Van, how could you not tell us? How could you let him threaten our daughter? Because I thought he was just venting. I thought it was just drunk talk. I didn't realize he was actually planning to follow through until he filed that CPS complaint. Vanessa's voice broke completely. I helped him, Marcus. When he was putting together his story for CPS, I helped him figure out what to say to make Emilia look unstable. Why? Emilia asked. Why would you help him hurt us? Because I wanted what you have so badly that I convinced myself you didn't deserve it. Because every time I looked at Sophia, I felt like the universe was playing some cosmic joke on me, giving the perfect baby to someone who trapped my brother while I couldn't get pregnant despite doing everything right. Vanessa wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. But when I saw Rico in that hospital bed, when I heard him confessing to actually giving alcohol to other children, when I realized that his next step was probably going to be physically hurting Sophia to frame you, I couldn't live with myself anymore. She stood up, leaving the envelope and her phone on their coffee table. Those recordings and texts should be enough to get the CPS case dropped. They prove that Rico filed false reports and that he's actually dangerous to children. What about your parents? Marcus asked. Are they going to keep protecting him? I don't know. I haven't told them about the suicide attempt or the recordings yet. But Marcus, they need to know what kind of person they've been defending. After Vanessa left, Emilia and Marcus sat in stunned silence, listening to recording after recording of Rico's increasingly deranged plans to destroy their family. The evidence was overwhelming. Not only had Rico filed false reports, but he documented his own malicious intent.
We need to call Sandra Chen, Emilia said. We need to call the police, Marcus replied. What Rico did isn't just unethical, it's criminal. Filing false reports, threatening to poison a child, admitting to giving alcohol to other infants. As they prepared to make the calls that would finally turn the tide in their favor, Emilia felt something she hadn't experienced in days. Hope. Not just hope that they would keep Sophia, but hope that Rico would finally face consequences for his actions and that other children would be protected from him. The nightmare was far from over, but for the first time since Saturday night, Emilia believed they were going to win.
Thursday morning brought the resolution Emilia had been praying for, but hardly dared to expect. Sandra Chen called at 8:30, her professional tone unable to completely mask what sounded like relief. Mrs. Davidson, I'm calling to inform you that the investigation into your family has been officially closed. The allegations have been determined to be unfounded. Emilia sank into her kitchen chair, Sophia sleeping peacefully in her arms. Thank you, she whispered, not trusting her voice to carry more words. Additionally, Sandra continued, I want you to know that we've opened a new investigation into Ricardo Torres based on evidence that came to light during our review of your case. The recordings and documentation provided by Mrs. Torres, combined with his admissions at Phoenix Children's Hospital, paint a very concerning picture. What happens now? Mr. Torres will be charged with filing false reports to a government agency, which is a felony in Arizona. We're also investigating his admission regarding giving alcohol to other children. Mrs. Davidson, I want to apologize for what your family went through. The system is designed to protect children, and it was used as a weapon against you. That's not acceptable. After the call ended, Emilia held Sophia close and cried, tears of relief, exhaustion, and residual terror at how close they'd come to losing everything. Marcus came home early from work that day, bringing flowers and takeout from Emilia's favorite Thai restaurant. It's over, he said, simply, wrapping his arms around both his wife and daughter. Is it? Emilia asked. Your family? My real family is right here, you and Sophia. Everyone else is going to have to earn their way back into our lives. The next few weeks brought a cascade of developments that reshaped the entire Davidson family dynamic. Rico was arrested on multiple charges, including filing false police reports, child endangerment, and providing alcohol to minors. The investigation revealed that he'd given alcohol to at least 3 different children over the past year, always framing it as harmless fun or family tradition. Maria Torres, Vanessa's sister, was devastated to learn that Rico had given rum to her 8-month-old son. I trusted him to babysit, she told Emilia in a tearful phone call. I thought he was just an inappropriate uncle, not someone who would actually hurt children. The criminal charges forced the entire Davidson family to confront the reality of who Rico really was. Robert and Patricia, faced with overwhelming evidence of their son-in-law's malicious behavior, finally acknowledged that they had chosen loyalty over truth. Robert called Marcus on a Tuesday evening, his voice heavy with shame. Son, I owe you and Emilia an apology. I was so focused on protecting the family reputation that I lost sight of protecting my granddaughter. I'm sorry. It wasn't enough to repair the damage immediately, but it was a start. Patricia's apology was more emotional, delivered through tears, during a carefully supervised visit to meet Sophia for the first time since the crisis began. She's so beautiful, Patricia whispered, holding her granddaughter with shaking hands. I can't believe I almost lost the chance to watch her grow up because I was protecting someone who wanted to hurt her. Vanessa's transformation was perhaps the most dramatic. The crisis had forced her to confront not just Rico's problems, but her own. She entered therapy to address her fertility-related trauma and the resentment that had nearly destroyed her relationship with her brother's family. I projected all my pain about not having children onto you having one so easily, she told Emilia during a carefully orchestrated lunch meeting 6 weeks after the investigation ended. I convinced myself that if you lost Sophia, it would somehow balance the cosmic scales. It was sick thinking. What's happening with you and Rico? Emilia asked. Divorce proceedings started last week. I can't be married to someone who would hurt children to get revenge on his perceived enemies. I should have left him years ago." Vanessa's eyes filled with tears as she watched Emilia gently bounce Sophia on her lap. "Do you think, someday, when I get my head straight, do you think I could be part of her life again, as her aunt?" Emilia considered the question carefully. "Therapy first, sobriety support for your codependency issues, and time. A lot of time. But Vanessa, I believe people can change when they truly want to. If you do the work, really do it, then maybe." The legal proceedings against Rico moved swiftly. Faced with recorded confessions and multiple witnesses, he pled guilty to avoid a lengthy trial. The judge sentenced him to 18 months in prison and 5 years of probation with mandatory alcohol treatment and supervised visitation restrictions for any future contact with minors.
The defendant used our child protection system as a weapon against innocent parents, Judge Helen Rodriguez said during sentencing. This represents not just a betrayal of the Davidson family, but of every legitimate case that comes before Child Protective Services. The court views this as an extremely serious offense. But perhaps the most significant transformation was in Emilia herself. The crisis had tested every aspect of her character, her instincts as a mother, her skills as a medical professional, her resilience in the face of systemic injustice. She'd emerged stronger, more confident in her judgment, and more determined than ever to protect vulnerable children. 3 months after the investigation ended, she received an unexpected offer. Dr. Martinez from Phoenix Children's Hospital called with a proposition. "Mrs. Davidson, we've been following your case closely. Your advocacy for your daughter, combined with your clinical expertise, has impressed our entire department. We'd like to offer you a position as a pediatric emergency nurse with a specialty focus on child protection cases." It was a career opportunity Emilia had never imagined. Working directly with children who needed protection, using her medical skills alongside her newfound understanding of how the system could be both a shield and a weapon. "I'm interested," she told Dr. Martinez, "but I have conditions. I want to be involved in training other medical professionals to recognize the difference between legitimate concerns and malicious reports. And I want to help develop protocols for better documentation and evidence collection." That's exactly what we had in mind. Starting the new job felt like coming full circle. Emilia was still protecting children, but now she was doing it on a larger scale, helping other families navigate the same treacherous waters she'd survived. Her first case was a mother who'd brought her toddler to the emergency room with suspicious injuries. As Emilia carefully documented the evidence and gently interviewed the frightened woman, she drew on every lesson learned from her own experience. "I know this is scary, but I'm here to help you protect your child. Tell me what really happened." The mother broke down and revealed that her boyfriend had been abusing her son. Because of Emilia's careful documentation and compassionate approach, the case resulted in the child's protection and the abuser's arrest. "You saved us," the mother whispered as they prepared to transfer her son to a safe placement. 6 months after the crisis, Emilia sat in her backyard watching Marcus push Sophia and her new swing set. At 9 months old, Sophia was crawling, babbling, and showing no signs of the trauma that had surrounded her earliest months. She was a happy, healthy baby who would grow up knowing she was loved and protected. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if we hadn't stood our ground that night?" Marcus asked, settling beside Emilia on their patio. "Every day," Emilia admitted. "But not just the bad outcomes. I think about all the good that came from it, too. Your family finally seeing Rico for who he really was. Vanessa getting help for her issues. Me finding a career that lets me help other families facing what we faced. Any regrets?" Emilia considered the question seriously. The past year had been the most difficult of her life, but it had also revealed strengths she didn't know she possessed and led to opportunities she'd never imagined. "Only one," she said finally. "I regret that it took so long for your family to believe us. I regret that other children were hurt while everyone made excuses for Rico. But fighting for Sophia, refusing to back down when everyone told us we were overreacting, never.
As if she knew they were talking about her, Sophia looked over from her swing and gave them a gummy smile that lit up her entire face. In that moment, Emilia knew with absolute certainty that every battle they had fought had been worth it. The little girl, who once had been threatened by people who should have protected her, was now safe, loved, and surrounded by adults who would move heaven and earth to keep her that way. And Emilia had found her true calling, not just as Sophia's mother, but as a guardian for all the children who needed someone to stand up for them when the world seemed determined to look the other way. The crisis that had nearly destroyed their family had ultimately made them stronger, wiser, and more committed to the values that truly mattered. Trust, once broken, had been rebuilt on a foundation of truth rather than convenience. And Sophia would grow up knowing that love meant protection, not just pretty words and empty promises. Sometimes the greatest threats came from within families rather than from strangers. But sometimes fighting those threats revealed who people really were and who they were capable of becoming.
Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.